need to install updates! What updates? Some more f***ing spyware? It doesn't even give you a choice to say no!
Over 500,000 people downloaded a single Linux distribution in 1 month.
1 month?
Not a decade, not a year, 1 month. And here's the part that should make Microsoft sweat. 78% of those downloads came from Windows machines. That's not a rounding error. That's not a curious niche. That is a migration. All right, so let me set the stage here because this happened in a vacuum. For years, Microsoft told us that Windows 10 would be, and I quote, the last version of Windows. That was the promise. One operating system, continuously updated forever. You buy in once, and you're done. Sounds great, right? Well, that didn't exactly age well, because in 2021, Microsoft announced Windows 11, a brand new operating system with brand new system requirement. And not just any requirement. We're talking TPM 2.0, Secure Boot, and a curated list of supported CPUs that cut off perfectly capable processors like first-generation Ryzen chips and anything older than 8th gen Intel. Now think about what that means in practice. You've got a desktop you built 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago. It runs everything you throw at it. Games, productivity, browsing, no problem. Then Microsoft comes along and says, sorry, your hardware isn't good enough for our new operating system. Not because it can't run it. It absolutely can, but because it doesn't have a specific security chip that, let's be honest, most everyday users have never interacted with and don't even know exists. And this isn't me speculating about the frustration. On Microsoft's own Q&A forums, you can find posts from users around the world, students, small business owners, people who simply can't afford to replace a working computer, begging Microsoft to reconsider. One post from a 15-year-old student in Pakistan reads like a letter to a company that forgot its own customers exist. His PC works perfectly. It does everything he needs, but he can't upgrade because of a security module he's never heard of. And Microsoft's response? They called TPM 2.0 non-negotiable. Their exact word. A non-negotiable standard for the future of Windows. Now, here's where the timeline gets really important. October 14, 2025. That's the date Microsoft officially ended mainstream support for Windows 10. No more security updates, no more patches, no more bug fixes. Unless, and here's the kicker, you pay for extended security update, which only buy you 1 extra year until October 2026. After that, you're on your own. So let's do the math on who this affects. According to reports leading up to the deadline, roughly 35 to 40% of all Windows machines were still running Windows 10. That translates to potentially hundreds of millions of devices worldwide. And a significant chunk of those can't upgrade to Windows 11 because of the hardware requirements we just talked about. So what are these people supposed to do? Buy a brand new computer just to keep getting security patches? For a lot of people, that's just not realistic. And this is the gap. The gap between what Microsoft promised and what Microsoft delivered. They promised one Windows forever. They delivered an ultimatum. Buy new hardware, pay for temporary life support, or figure it out yourself. Enter Linux, and specifically, enter Zorin OS. Zorin OS 18 launched on October 14, 2025, the exact same day Windows 10 reached end of life. If that's not poetic, I don't know what is. And the results were immediate. According to Zorin's own blog, the distribution hit 1 million downloads in just over a month. That broke all of their previous records. And remember that stat I opened with? 78% of those downloads came from Windows. That means over 780,000 Windows users downloaded Zorin OS 18 in its first month alone. Now, I want to be fair here, and this is important for journalistic integrity. Downloads are not the same as permanent switches. Some of those are people testing a live USB. Some might be duplicate downloads. Some people might have tried it and gone back to Windows. A download is a signal of intent, not confirmation of migration. But even with those caveats, the volume and the timing, right at Windows 10's end of life, make this one of the most significant moments in desktop Linux history. And Zorin isn't the only data point. According to StatCounter, Linux desktop market share reached 4.7% globally in 2025. In the United States, it crossed 5% for the first time ever in June 2025. To put that in perspective, it took Linux 2 decades to reach 1% market share in 2011, another decade to hit 2%, and now it's gone from under 3% in 2022 to over 5% in the US in just 3 years. That is an acceleration curve, not a slow climb. On Steam, Valve's hardware survey showed Linux crossing the 3% barrier among gamers in October 2025, the highest in Steam's history on Linux. These are small numbers in absolute terms, yes. But when you're talking about a platform that was considered a rounding error for decades, going from irrelevant to measurable, that matters. So why Zorin specifically? What makes it the landing pad for these Windows refugees? The answer is dead simple. It looks and feels like Windows. Zorin OS is built on Ubuntu, which means it has rock-solid stability and a massive software library. But what sets it apart is its design philosophy. The taskbar looks like Windows. The start menu, familiar. The file manager, you'd barely notice the difference. Zorin is engineered from the ground up to make Windows users feel like they never left. And it goes beyond aesthetic. Zorin ships with something called Windows App Support, which is built on Wine, the compatibility layer that lets you run Windows applications on Linux. You can literally take a exe file, double-click it in Zorin, and in many cases, it installs and runs AS if you were on Windows. You don't need to be a terminal wizard. You don't need to compile anything from source. It just works. PC World called Zorin one of the best free Linux variants that actually feels like Windows. ZNet said the team has taken a great Linux desktop OS and made it even better. XDA developers praised its interface for people coming from Windows. These aren't niche Linux blogs. These are mainstream tech outlets saying, yeah, this is ready. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, because for years, this was the single biggest reason people stayed on Windows: gaming. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because the gaming gap, it's closing fast. And you can thank one company for that: Valve. When Valve released the Steam Deck, a handheld gaming PC running Steam OS, which is built on Linux, they didn't just make a cool gadget. They fundamentally changed the economics of Linux gaming. Suddenly, Valve had a massive financial incentive to make Windows games work on Linux. And they poured resources into a project called Proton, which is their fork of Wine specifically tuned for gaming. The results have been remarkable. Thousands of Windows games now run on Linux through Proton, many of them out of the box with zero configuration. We're not talking indie title. We're talking Cyberpunk 2077, Baldur's Gate 3, AAA games that were developed with Linux and the Steam Deck in mind. GPU driver support has improved dramatically, especially on AMD, where Linux drivers have gone from a headache to genuinely competitive with Windows, and in some benchmarks, actually faster. Notebook Check reported that AMD's Radeon 880M showed up to 50% performance gains on Linux compared to Windows 11 in certain benchmarks. 50%. Valve's Steam hardware survey confirms the trend. Linux gaming hit its highest recorded share ever at over 3% in late 2025. And community sites like ProtonDB let you check compatibility for any game before you even think about switching. Now, and I want to be honest here, it's not perfect. Kernel-level anti-cheat is still a hard wall for some online multiplayer games. Modding through Proton can be tricky. If you play a lot of competitive titles that require anti-cheat, you'll want to check compatibility first. But for the vast majority of gamers, the gap has never been smaller. And there's another shift that's quietly made Linux viable for everyday users, and most people don't even think about it: web app. Think about your daily workflow for a second. How much of it happens in a browser? Email, that's Gmail, or Outlook in a browser. Documents, Google Docs, or Office 365 in a browser. Project management, Notion, Trello, Asana, all browser-based. Design, Canva, Figma, browser. Communication, Slack has a web app, Teams has a web app, Discord has a web app. The shift to software as a service has quietly demolished one of Linux's oldest weaknesses. You used to need specific Windows applications for specific tasks. Now, you need a browser. And last time I checked, Linux runs Chrome and Firefox just fine. Zorin takes this even further by including a built-in web app manager that lets you install these services as standalone applications. They get their own window, their own icon in the taskbar. They behave like native apps. It borrows this concept from Chrome OS, which, by the way, is itself built on Linux. So the irony here is beautiful. The same approach that made Chromebooks viable for schools and businesses is now making full Linux desktops viable for everyone else. Alright, let me put on my analysis hat for a minute because I think there's a bigger picture here that's worth examining. One interpretation of Microsoft's TPM 2.0 requirement is that it's genuinely about security. And look, there is a real security case for hardware-based roots of trust. TPM protects BitLocker encryption, secures the boot process, hardens Windows Hello. These are legitimate benefits, and security researchers do support the concept. But here's what critics argue, and I think it's a reasonable position. The practical effect of this requirement was to make hundreds of millions of perfectly working computers obsolete in the eyes of Microsoft's upgrade path. On Reddit's PC gaming forum, one highly upvoted comment put it bluntly, suggesting that Microsoft limited Windows 11's hardware requirements to drive hardware sales rather than for genuine user safety. Whether or not you agree with that take, the perception matters. When users feel like they're being pushed toward a new purchase they don't need, they start looking for alternatives. And then there's the broader direction of Windows 11 itself. Ads in the start menu, promoted content in search results, aggressive OneDrive integration, the recall feature that essentially screenshots everything you do, mandatory Microsoft accounts during setup. For users who value privacy and control, Windows 11 feels like it's moving in exactly the wrong direction. As one user on a KDE developer blog put it, "I don't want an all-seeing eye watching my monitor." This suggests that the migration to Linux isn't just about hardware requirements. It's about a philosophical divergence. Microsoft is building an operating system that serves Microsoft's interests: data collection, cloud services, AI integration, hardware partnerships. Linux offers an operating system that serves the user's interests. And for a growing number of people, that difference is becoming impossible to ignore. Now, in fairness, and I believe in being fair, let me acknowledge what Microsoft has done right. Windows 11 is a polished operating system in many ways. The design is clean, the snap layouts for window management are genuinely useful, and direct storage support for gaming is impressive technology. Microsoft has invested heavily in accessibility features, and Windows remains the most compatible platform for specialized professional software. Things like Adobe Creative Suite, many engineering applications, enterprise Active Directory environment. If your work depends on software that only runs natively on Windows, that's a real consideration that Linux hasn't fully solved. Microsoft also did offer consumers a free extended security update option for Windows 10 for 1 year, which, while limited, is unprecedented. They've never done that for consumers before. And Windows 11's security model, TPM and all, does represent a genuine step forward in baseline security for the average user, even if the average user will never notice it. The Linux desktop also still has real rough edges. Driver support for very new hardware can lag behind. The Wayland display server transition is still ongoing, and some screen sharing and streaming workflows are inconsistent. Installing certain niche peripherals, fingerprint readers, specialty USB-C docks, can require troubleshooting that Windows handles automatically. And for enterprise environments built around group policy, Active Directory, and Microsoft's management stack, Linux isn't a drop-in replacement, not yet. So, looking forward, what should you actually watch for? First, keep your eye on the numbers. If Linux desktop share continues climbing past 5% in the US and approaches that globally, it creates a feedback loop. More users means more developer attention, which means better software, which means more users. We're approaching the point where that flywheel could start spinning on its own. Second, watch what Valve does next. There are persistent rumors about a standalone SteamOS release for regular PCs. If Valve releases a consumer-friendly Linux distribution specifically optimized for desktop gaming, that could be enormous. Third, pay attention to government. Germany's state of Schleswig-Holstein has already fully replaced Microsoft tools with Linux and LibreOffice in public offices. France runs over 100,000 computers on a custom Ubuntu distribution for its national gendarmerie. Denmark announced a transition from Microsoft to open source platforms in 2025. When governments move, enterprise follow. And here's my recommendation if you're watching this and thinking about making the switch. Try it first. Don't wipe your drive tomorrow. Download Zorin OS or Linux Mint or Ubuntu. Flash it to a USB stick. Boot from it. You can run the entire operating system without installing anything, without touching your Windows installation. Use it for a weekend. See if your workflow survives. Check if your games run. See how it feels. If it works, you've just saved yourself from buying a new computer and gotten a faster, cleaner, more private operating system. If it doesn't, you reboot into Windows and nothing has changed. The numbers don't lie. Over 1 million downloads of Zorin OS 18 in 1 month. Linux at nearly 5% globally and over 5% in the United States. Steam gaming on Linux at an all-time high. And a user base that's growing not because of hype, but because Microsoft gave them a reason to lead. This isn't the year of the Linux desktop as a meme anymore. This is a measurable, documented shift driven by real market forces, hardware gating, end-of-support deadlines, privacy concerns, and a Linux ecosystem that is finally genuinely ready for mainstream users. If you've made the switch, or if you're thinking about it, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. What distro did you land on? What surprised you? What still drives you crazy? And if you're still on Windows and you've got reasons to stay, I want to hear that too, because this conversation needs both sides. If this video helped you understand what's happening, smash that like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who need to see this. Subscribe if you want to stay on top of the biggest shifts in tech. And share this with that one friend who's been complaining about Windows 10 ending. They need to see this. I'll see you in the next one.